My name is Charlotte Geesin. I'm Head of Employment Law and Business Immigration at Haworths, and this is just a very short video update following the Chancellor's announcements on Friday, the 29th of May, regarding the future of the furlough scheme. So on Friday, Mr. Sunak confirmed some preliminary headline details in terms of how the furlough scheme would look post 30th of June. We knew prior to Friday's announcement that the scheme would be running unchanged until that point. But with effect from the 1st of July, quite a significant amendment to the operation of the scheme is being introduced, insofar as on that date, the scheme becomes flexible, in the sense that it will allow employers to bring back employees to undertake work on a part-time basis, even though they are on furlough leave. This, I think, is essentially a good, a positive development, and it will help employers start phasing their employees back into the workplace without losing the support which the government currently provides. Throughout the month of July, employers will be able to bring employees back part-time whilst on furlough, and whilst it's the employer who needs to pay employees in full for any work which is undertaken during that period, for any days where the employee has no work to do and they remain furloughed, the government will continue to pay up to 80% of the employee's wages for any periods where there is insufficient work for the employee to undertake. The 80% contribution or £2,500 cap can be accessed in exactly the same way under the job retention scheme provisions, and it will offer another few weeks of support to employers as we continue to work our way through this coronavirus pandemic. In order to seek the benefits of this flexible element, there is no minimum or maximum amount of work which must be carried out by an employee for a claim under the job retention scheme to be successful. As such, there's not going to be any issues if you still don't have any work for your furloughed employees to do. They can still be furloughed for 100% of their hours, and you can still claim up to 80% or £2,500 for each individual who finds themselves in that situation. The introduction of the flexibility element doesn't seek to penalise any employees. It merely gives employers the option to begin phasing employees back into the workplace as hopefully their operations begin to pick up as a result of the upcoming lockdown easing measures. If an employer wants to make use of this new flexible element to the scheme, then any work undertaken by a furloughed employee must be confirmed in writing, and the minimum period of time that flexible working arrangement must be in place in order for a claim under the job retention scheme to succeed is 1 week. So the minimum claim period is 1 week. From the 1st of August, the scheme will continue to run in that way with this flexible element attached, with employees still also being able to be furloughed for 100% of the time if there isn't any work for them to do at all. The only change on the 1st of August is that employers will start needing to pay their employee national insurance contributions and the minimum pension contributions as well. Obviously, both of these are currently covered by the job retention scheme, but this is the first stage, if you like, of the withdrawal of the government support. From the 1st of September, the much debated reduction in contribution will take effect. And whilst furlough pay for employees will remain at 80%, the government contribution towards this percentage will reduce to 70%, or a maximum cap of £2,187.50. Employers will need to top up to the extra 10%, so that the employee continues to receive 80% of their wages whilst on furlough leave. And where employers seek to allow their employees to undertake work through the flexibility provisions, it is the employer who still will have to fund that work, and they will still have to pay 100% of the employee's wages for any hours undertaken. If you are currently paying your employees 100%, or if you have currently agreed with your employees that you will seek to pay them out of line with the government's 80% provisions, then you'll need to ensure that you get your employees' consent and agreement to that reduction. Don't forget that employees have to ultimately agree to be furloughed, and they also have to agree to any terms which attach themselves to that. From the 1st of October and for the final month of the scheme, the government contribution will drop to 60%, or a maximum of £1,875. At this point, employers will be required to pay all employee national insurance and pension costs, and obviously the 20% as well of the employee's wages to top them back up to the 80% of the furlough pay. On Friday, the Chancellor seemed very clear that the scheme would close and end completely on the 31st of October, with no further state support being available after that point. In terms of who these changes will affect, the government hasn't confirmed either way whether there'll be any exclusions or deviations in terms of the percentage contribution for those businesses that remain completely closed. I think it might be best to assume the worst until we hear otherwise, and to plan for having to make contributions towards your furloughed employees' wages, even if, like we say, you remain closed and there's no work at all for them to undertake. We are waiting for further details to be published with regards to the future of the furlough scheme, and the government has committed to providing us with those details by the 12th of June. As it has been the case as we've worked through this furlough process from the start, from March, the devil has always been in the detail, and once that information is released, we will review it and absorb it and provide you with any further updates that you need accordingly. One thing that does seem possible at this stage, it might all change when the official detail is announced, is that employers can still compel employees on furlough leave to take annual leave during any workless period. Compelling annual leave, or rather compelling employees to take annual leave, as we've discussed previously, can be a really good way of you managing your ongoing obligations in that respect, and to keep your accumulating employee costs down, because obviously any annual leave that's taken during furlough leave attracts an 80% claim under the CJRS, although obviously you do have to top up to the 100% for any annual leave that's actually taken. If the rules change in this regard, we will let you know, like I say, but for now, certainly until the end of June, there are no changes in respect of annual leave. A very important point to note here is that the furlough scheme is going to close to new entrants from the 30th of June. The wording is arguably slightly confusing here, but just to confirm, this doesn't alter the fact that employees must have been on your payroll from the 19th of March in order to be eligible for the furlough scheme. As such, if you have any new starters or anybody who has joined post 19th of March, this doesn't mean that they're eligible for the furlough scheme now, if you sort of seek to furlough them before the 30th of June. It only means that if you have employees who were with you prior to the 19th of March who have not yet been furloughed, then unless you furlough them now, you won't be able to furlough them after the 30th of June. From the 1st of July then, employers will only be able to furlough employees who have already been furloughed for a full 3-week period prior to the 30th of June. So in practice, the last date, if you like, to furlough any new staff is the 10th of June, this allowing a passing of 3 weeks under the job retention scheme. There could obviously be a few implications, considerations for employers here, but the headline point, I think, is that if you think you may need to rely on the furlough scheme any time between now and the end of October, and you want maximum flexibility in terms of who you can furlough and when, then you might want to have a look at rotating your furloughed staff so that you get as many of your employees onto furlough now, which will then give you the corresponding right as we move between now and October to pick and choose who you furlough when you want. Obviously, the more eligible employees you have for furlough, the more ability you will have ultimately to flex your workforce and to adapt to anything that you may need to adapt to commercially between now and October. As I say, the government has committed to providing further details in just under 2 weeks by the 12th of June. And as I say, as soon as that's released, we'll be looking at that and providing you with further updates in due course. If, however, you have any questions on the developments which came to the fore on Friday, or you'd like to discuss how these affect you and your current or future plans for your operations, then you know where we are. Please feel free to contact us anytime. Okay, see you soon. Bye.